I'm Jace Lacob, and you're listening to Masterpiece Studio. Over the past 10 seasons, Cathy Keating has had quite the transformation, engineered through her own ingenuity and determination. In the early days of Grantchester, Cathy was known to us as Geordie's wife, preoccupied with one of life's hardest roles, raising 4 children full-time. She later entered the workforce as a saleswoman at a local department store, where she discovered a knack for fashion, unionizing, and business. More recently, Cathy and Sylvia Chapman united forces and took a leap of faith by opening their very own fashion boutique, CeCe's. While their business has been successful, the pair's private tiffs have become more public and more frequent.
Where have you been all this time?
I didn't mean it like that.
We're working on her manners.
Oh, I don't mind.
When have my manners been anything other than impeccable?
At CeCe's, when I'm trying to do the accounts.
Trying being the operative word.
Lamb, Mira.
While investigating a murder at the drive-in, Geordie meets a man named Mr. Switch, who just might be the answer to CeCe's latest challenges.
I think it's just not acceptable. It's not that far, is it?
Ladies, your new accountant. How'd you do?
How'd you do?
Mr. Switch soon settles in and helps CeCe's get back on track, and Cathy delights in having a new face, particularly a handsome one, in the business to bounce ideas off of.
Yes, they are expensive, but they're hand-stitched. They're Italian. And I figure if we invest in something more at market, then we get a more at market customer.
What's your instinct telling you?
We do it.
Well, there you go then.
But is this arrangement truly as good as it seems? Today, we're joined by actor Kacey Ainsworth to discuss Cathy's transformation from domestic goddess to fashion entrepreneur and how she navigates her personal and professional relationships. This week, we are joined by Grantchester star Kacey Ainsworth. Welcome.
Oh, how lovely to be here.
So before we dive into Series 11, I want to take a trip down memory lane and look back at the very beginning of Grantchester. Thinking back at that first episode you filmed way back when, did you have any inkling that you'd be sat here more than a decade later talking about Cathy Keating?
Absolutely no idea that we would be running this long. I thought if we were lucky, we'd probably get three series out of it, maybe. But I had no idea what would happen to Cathy throughout this decade and how things would change, and also how much we'd bring the present moment in time, the years, into focus for what was going on with her, and how, as a character, she'd kind of bloom and grow, really. I had no idea that would happen at the beginning.
I mean, that I think is what is really apparent with Cathy. When you look at episode 1 of Grantchester, she's a pregnant housewife. She's responsible for the washing up and the care of a ever-increasing brood of kids while Geordie is sort of swanning off solving murders. And she's a far cry from the businesswoman we see in Series 11, running her own boutique with Sylvia Chapman. What has surprised you the most about Cathy's trajectory?
Well, the lovely thing was that we could always have an open dialogue with the producers of Grantchester around about our characters and what was happening with them. And certainly for me, I looked at my own family, my own life, and the women in my life. And I found that a lot of the time they weren't being depicted in period dramas, I thought, in a way that showed rounded characters and individuals and people with dreams and aspirations. And so when we kind of first started, yes, that was her place. And also we were just after the war, there was still rationing. There was a lot of things that were keeping women in certain places where they possibly didn't want to be or hadn't been during the war, but that had to return to. And so we've actually really followed a true version of what happened to women in the 1950s and through to 63, and the opportunities that did become available to them. And so, yes, firstly, I didn't know that was going to happen at the beginning of the series, but it's lovely that we can have a collaboration and talk about our grandmothers and what they did, And that's how we got to Cathy working, was because we realised that the executive producer, Emma Kingsman-Lloyd, Daisy Coulomb, myself, and Tessa, who plays Mrs. Chapman, we all had grandmothers who worked. And so we went, well, maybe Cathy should get a job. And so that's how it began.
I love that. I love that. And drawing on all of your sort of familial experiences to inform the show, it feels so real, I think, because of that. If we're staying on memory lane here, casting your mind back, what do you remember about your initial audition for Grantchester?
I had just had my second child, and I really wasn't looking for something that I had a lot of commitment to do. So a lot of filming days, because I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And filming can be incredibly long hours. And I really didn't want to commit to something that was going to take up a huge amount of my time. So when I realized that Cathy was a regular, but wasn't going to have too many filming days, I thought this is a great opportunity. And I'd been in something before in England that was a huge commitment. And so I was really shy of wanting to do that. But I remember going in and meeting Harry Bradbeer, who was the first director on Grantchester, and he directed me in something else years and years previously, and I'd absolutely adored him. And I thought I'd really like to work with him again. And he was just wonderful in the audition and said to me, look, how are you? You know, you've literally just had a baby. This wouldn't be a huge commitment for you, but I think it'd be a really good move. And I really love this series. And so, you know, the combination of Harry giving me that confidence to come back into the workplace, because I had stopped for 7 years. So it's quite scary to go back in, because you think to yourself, oh my God, can I still do it? Can I still do this job, or do I know what to do? And it was really lovely to come back into something gently like that. So obviously, you know, as Cathy's character has evolved, I'm in more often. But obviously my children are now 18 and 21. So need mummy much less.
Obviously, the big thing that you did would be playing Little Mo on EastEnders for 522 episodes across 6 years, which is staggering. But at the same time, what has it been like playing Cathy on Grantchester for over a decade and living with this woman for as long as you have?
Honestly, it's been such a joy. And I know people say that about working on shows, but this really, it is such a joy to work on it with all the other people, everybody from the executive producers, all the way through the cast, the crew. And the testament of this program is that people come back. They consistently come back, cast, crew, members, production team. Everybody comes back to the show because it's such a beautiful piece. And that's always because of who is leading your show. So from an actor's point of view, whoever's your number one and your number two on the call sheet are the people who set the tone amongst the kind of actors and people who are coming on to do the creatives. But then you have your producers who also set the tone for how the whole piece is going to be. And because they are so responsive and because they genuinely care about the product, there is never a day where someone says, that'll do on our show. And the standard is so high from everybody that we all put a shift in. And had to have Robson and the 3 vicars that we've had who also follow Robson's kind of lead, really, in the way he leads the show, means that everybody who comes on our show loves it and nobody has a bad word to say about it.
I do want to talk about Robson. So one of the things I love most about Cathy and Geordie's marriage is that it's not perfect. They have their ups and downs, their trials, their losses, and their moments of joy, all played out against a decade of the two of them changing in their own ways. What has it been like depicting the nuances of marriage with Robson Green?
Well, it was one of the things that both of us said that we really wanted it to be. We didn't want it to be a picture perfect relationship. We wanted to see those trials and tribulations of people who were trying to work, trying to bring up children in ever-changing circumstances. And it's such a fantastically changeable decade, the 50s through to the 60s. So there was a lot that we could mine together through that. But that was the thing we wanted it to be. There's been so many lovely lines that Daisy Coulomb's wrote about our marriage. And I think it really it really has been truthful. And I think that's why people have liked it. She's not always been responsive. He's not always been responsive. It's been really truthful. And one of the things that stuck with me way back in probably maybe series 4, 3 or 4, was when Geordie talks about getting together with Cathy and the fact that it wasn't love at first sight. But when she turned away from him to leave, when they decided they weren't going to be together, he wished with all his might that she would turn back. And in that moment, he realized that he didn't want to let her go. And so it wasn't all tied up and neat in a bow. It was a kind of messy bow, but it was their messy bow. And that's what we both really wanted to show, to depict.
Their messy bow. I love that.
Yeah.
Geordie and Kath have to be believable because they anchor the foundation of the show in a dynamic that's rooted in life rather than in death or murder.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of Robson when you met him?
Well, I don't know anybody who meets Robson and doesn't instantly warm to him, because he is one of the most open and generous actors I've ever worked with. Anybody who comes into the makeup room, he will say hello to every single person who is sitting in that makeup room. And he will never imagine that they know who he is. He introduces himself. He says, I don't know what you're doing on the show. And they will say, oh, I'm playing so and so and so and so. He goes, oh yes, we've got a lot of stuff together. If you want to run lines, then that's great. He's so open. And then that means that person who's coming on to play a guest role, and sometimes they're the most frightening because you don't know anybody, you don't know the crew, and puts those people at their ease. And it means that we all do the same. So we do the same. Whether I'm working with the crime people or not working with the crime people, I always go up and say, hello, I don't think we're going to get to work together, but I hope you have a lovely time on it. And that's one of the things that gets said to me outside in other jobs. I came on to do so-and-so, and everybody was just so welcoming and lovely. And that's how he was with me straight away. And I had said to him, God, I'm a bit nervous. It's really weird. I haven't done it for 7 years. And he said, all you need to remember is don't go until they say action. And he was great. He was really great. And he is so easy to be around, and but also has really high standards. I think in 11 years of working with Robson, he's never dropped a line with any scenes that we've done.
That's incredible.
I have, but he hasn't. I honestly don't remember a time where he's gone, I'm sorry, I've forgotten what I'm doing. Never. Never, never, never. Amazing, isn't it?
Unheard of.
Exactly. You hear about people who've got lines written on the floor, and or people holding up, cards with their lines. He just doesn't do that. He just doesn't do it. He just waits until it arrives. And so he's never gone line or asked for a line or anything like that. I think he's some kind of superhuman creature.
Grantchester's female characters hold up a mirror to a changing Britain in the 1950s and 60s. And Cathy in particular is fascinating to watch because she mirrors that change, her world transforming from the domestic to the professional over 10 years with many speed bumps, albeit along the way. What do you make of Cathy's tenacity?
Well, I think that lots of working class women of that time had those skills and that skill set. And it's lovely that she gets to show it during all of the changes, like you say, during that decade of change that we had from going from the 50s to the 60s. And I love the fact that she's tenacious, and I love the fact that she has such drive and ambition for herself. Because like I've said, in some dramas, you don't see that for working class women or women who worked. You don't see it very often. And it's lovely to see a female entrepreneur because they were there. And so for me, it was really important that they made sure that Cathy had, like I say, this fully rounded character, and that she had ambition and drive. And that's the other thing about their relationship as well, is because she's so up and always got something new and always wanting to talk about something new, she takes Geordie out of the grimness that he deals with every single day. And when he comes back home, he doesn't need to hash that over. She doesn't say to him, let's sit and talk about it, or they have a row about it. She goes, oh, just, have a drink and let's do this. And she's off talking about something else. And it brightens his world because she's so up and so at life. And I think that's what he needs, because he's dealing with murder and death all day. So he needs someone who's so vibrant. And I think that's what Cathy has become in the show. And that's the other reason why the Messy Bow works, is because she adds this colour, quite dark days.
Can we say she's the heartbeat of the show? I think we can.
Well, I don't know. I don't think she's the heartbeat of the show. We have so many heartbeats of the show. My goodness. I mean, Mrs. C, Leonard, Dickens. We've got so many hearts of the show. And that's the wonderful thing about this show, is the fact that you can focus in on, put a light on any one of the characters, and we will all have some kind of involvement within that character and within that character's story, and we'll all have a different take on it. So we merge so well together. And I think that's happened over the course of the years, how things have grown amongst us all. And people who've come in later series, like Larry and Miss Scott, Melissa and Bradley, have, again, the same, have grown, integrated themselves. And now we are a big family. And I think that is one of the really huge successes of this show.
You're going to make me cry, Kacey.
Oh, I know, don't.
You're going to make me cry.
We were all in bits. We've all been in bits for the whole of the, I think the first day we started shooting, the last day was absolutely terrible. We were all in floods of tears because, again, it's a rare thing. It's a rare and beautiful thing. But we're so glad to have had it. To have had that is wonderful. To have had that for over a decade is really brilliant.
We're going to take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors, and when we return, more from Grantchester star Kacey Ainsworth. Ocean voyages, expeditions, river journeys. Viking is dedicated to bringing travelers closer to the destination, offering a small ship experience and a shore excursion in every port. Learn more at Viking.com. And we're back with actor Kacey Ainsworth. Over 11 series, we've seen Cathy grapple with pregnancy, menopause, infidelity, launching a business, caring for aging parents. And a Series 5 storyline introduced Cathy's mom, Diana, played by the brilliant Paula Wilcox, who is revealed to be suffering with what appears to be bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And until that point, I felt like I had a read on Cathy Keating and who she was. But the Diana storyline and the trauma of Cathy's childhood that it kicks up reveals so much about her. And there is this corrosive dynamic with her mother that she's concealed even from her detective husband. Turning a little bit ahead of that, one of my favorite Grantchester episodes of all time is from Series 9, which you wrote with Daisy Coulomb and revolves around a murder at Esme's office.
Yeah.
And it's told almost entirely from the perspective of 4 women. What was it like getting the opportunity as an actor to write an episode like this one?
Well, like I say, the production company are really encouraging. And I had, for years, suggested storylines. In fact, the bipolar storyline, I had suggested that and said we need to talk about what happens with women in mental health issues for women in the 1950s. So that's just an example of a storyline I suggested and talked about. And I then went to see Tessa and said to her at the end of Series 8, I've got an idea for an episode and I'd really like to write it. What do you think? And of course, because Tessa's so wonderful, she said, do it and then send it to me and then we'll see what I think. So that's exactly what I did. I wrote an episode from the female perspective, just because there were huge changes that happened during the, like we said before, the 50s, the 60s, huge changes in the opportunities for women and women's status in the world. And so I just wanted to write an episode that featured Miss Scott and Mrs. C and Cathy and Esme and see if we could make an episode out of that. And it's the strength of the other characters that is the reason why we can. And so I got up early. It was Christmas. I got up early before the kids were awake, wrote every morning and then sent it to Tessa, who said, you need to send this in. So sent it to Emma and Daisy. And then they beautifully got back to me and said, we absolutely love this idea. We absolutely adore it. Would you like to come on board? And Daisy will mentor you, and we will show you how we do the whole process and what happens. And so it gave me a complete insight into the huge amount of work that it takes to produce an amazing script, but also the care, the attention to detail. So I had an amazing experience, and I am forever grateful that they allowed me to do that, because in quite a lot of times when I was younger, as an actor, you would not be allowed to do that in England. I find that the American shows that I work on are completely different. Seemed to be, in those days when I was younger, much more collaborative, much more happy to have an actor's opinion on things. Whereas it was very different in England. There were definite stratas. You didn't go to the writer and speak about what the lines you were doing. You just did them, and so there was a lot of that. And so I was very grateful, and because I'd been brought up through that system, I was quite afraid to even mention that I wanted to write something. What an upstart I felt. When you're getting all of these brilliant scripts, but that wasn't the feeling that I got from the producers. It was one of, this is great. We absolutely love this, and let's talk about it. And we did. And bingo, there it was.
There it was. You mentioned the dialogue, and Series 9 is powered by the struggle between Cathy and Esme, played since the beginning of Grantchester by Skye Degratola. And the fact that you've been by Skye's side informs that scene with Mrs. C so beautifully.
Feel like I can't win. Give her freedom, they say. Cut the apron strings, don't cling on. But as soon as it goes wrong, it's
The mother who's to blame.
So what do I do? Do I let her go out there? Small girl who I taught to read, taught to swim with my hand under her belly.
Yes, that's exactly what you do.
I want to be with her every step of the way. I can't, can I?
No one can. And if you try, you'll drive yourself round the twist.
Maybe I'm already round it.
What is contained within that speech, and what inspired you to write that?
Well, again, it's real experience. That is my daughter. I have a daughter who's exactly the same age as Skye. And that was my feeling, even at that moment in time. And so therefore, if something comes from a real experience, that feeling of letting your child, your daughter, your son go out into the world and knowing yourself the dangers that could be out there. They might not be, but they could be out there, and that you've seen and that you've experienced, and how hard that is for a mother and a father to experience those things, a parent to experience those things. And again, when you write, you want to resonate with as many people as possible, so they all feel that. But I do remember writing it and crying at my own writing and thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. And I do remember sitting up in bed and crying at that speech and thinking, I've written there. What am I crying for? This is insane. But I knew it would resonate with people because it affected me, even though I wrote it.
If it's hitting you, it's gonna
hit other people the same way, right? Well, you hope that's what you hope. Could be being indulgent, so you have all of these, worries around things. But yeah, definitely it came from a place of absolute truth and a want to, like I say, resonate with as many people as possible who've been in that situation. It doesn't matter whether it is whether they're 21 or whether they're 4 and going into school. You place your trust in the people outside of your home, and that's a big thing.
In Series 11, Cathy and Sylvia are growing their business. CeCe's is off to a bit of a rocky start, but Cathy has an eye for fashion, balancing Sylvia's more traditional tastes and experience from working at Swinnerton's. What do you make of Kath's aspirations? Is she ahead of the curve in terms of fashion exploding in the 1960s?
I think she probably gets carried away with herself. I think it's one of those things where you want it so badly and now it's happening and you're kind of tripping over yourself to have the best experience in every single day that you're doing it. And I think she needs the anchor that is Mrs. Chatton, because she would just run away with herself and within no period of time get into huge amounts of debt, because her creative self is finally at her midlife age. She's creatively finally doing something, and something that she's always wanted to do. And I think actually in fashion, this is something that you see a lot of times. I know that I think Vera Wang didn't have her first collection until she was 40. And there's lots of people who have come through the fashion industry and have had very, checkered ways to be a fashion designer. And Cathy's just, it's literally like she's taken the stabilizers off of her bike and she's flying down the hill, but she doesn't worked out where the brakes are. So she needs Mrs. C to put those brakes on, because otherwise, yeah, she just run away with herself. She's so excited by the whole prospect. And I understand that. It's like when you begin anything that you've wanted to do for such a long time, your beginner's energy is sometimes, overflowing, and you do have to rein it in sometimes a little bit.
So Kath and Sylvia clearly need help on some of the organizational issues at CeCe's, and Geordie finds them an accountant, Peter Switch. Does Switch seem like the answer to their prayers, particularly since he and Cathy seem to be of a similar mind when it comes to, say, hand-stitched Italian dresses?
Yeah, Mr. Switch seems like he's got an eye for and got a flair for what's going to be fashionable, what's going to be in. He has all the right words. Whereas I suppose when Cathy looks at Mrs. C, she doesn't see someone who's wearing the latest cutting edge fashion. She sees someone who's going, well, how much is that going to cost? And can't we use this? So she sees someone who's putting out the flames, whereas he is literally lighting the match and saying, to get the fire burning, lay it raw high, So of course, that's a wonderful thing. Someone who is as enthusiastic about things as you are and sees potential. I mean, obviously, Geordie's very proud of her. He doesn't know anything about fashion and doesn't want to know either. He's worn the same suit since series 1. She can't really speak to him about fashion. But when she's got someone who says, yeah, wow, that's a great idea, or that's beautiful, or that feels amazing, you feel like you've got a partner in crime. And obviously with Sylvia, there was partners in crime, but not someone who was saying yes, 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 yes. There was someone who was going, yes, but, yes, but. And of course, Mr. Switch doesn't do the but.
No. So Cathy and Switch, played by Daniel Lapine, they hit it off immediately, and there is a frisson between them, a tension that maybe borders on the romantic or sexual.
Crikey. Sends me quite giddy making decisions.
Yeah, shouldn't do. You're bloody good at it.
Am I?
A bona fide woman of business. Glamorous, too.
Tell that to my kids.
Hello, CeCe Boutique.
You still at it?
Oh, busy day.
It's like the Marie Celeste here.
Oh, the kids are at Esme's.
Thought we were having a family dinner.
They are, just not with you.
Get some chips on your way home, would you, love? Need more sustenance and cream of tomato.
Will do.
So how's your
See you
day?
later. Bye.
It's hard not to watch this scene in episode 3 without thinking back to Geordie and Margaret. But here it's Cathy who's at late work with someone, and Geordie's at home with a tin of tomato soup. But even as she tries to talk to Geordie about Italian couture, he makes it all about him and his upcoming decision. Do you feel like there's a sense here that Cathy longs to be the main character in her own story?
Yeah, I think she has. Like, many women, they put themselves in the backstory whilst they're bringing up the children. And then they get to a point where their children don't need them so much anymore. And then who are they? Where are they? So finding her identity outside of that, not just going to work, but having a vision and a passion for something. And I feel like the tables turn, and then she has to understand how easily that can happen and how quickly that can happen, where yourself that what you're doing isn't right, but you do it anyway. And it's quite difficult for, I think, Cathy to accept that what she's doing isn't right. And Mrs. C pulls her on it and she brushes it off. And so I think that it's always good when you have parts of your character where they're fallible, where they're not perfect, where they don't do the right thing when they know they should. And so I like that as a part of like the character development that we had with, Cathy and Geordie there as well.
And the episode ends with Cathy closing up CeCe's for the night with Mr. Switch, who asks her to the pub.
Pub?
Go on then, Mr. Switch. Why not?
Peter, please.
What compels Cathy to go out with Peter Switch rather than go home that night? And what's at risk here?
I think it's as she discovered, Geordie doesn't want to talk about the shop or fashion, whereas Mr. Switch is an extremely good listener. And I think where she has spoken about things at home, she feels like there's a bit of a glazed look in Geordie's eye when she talks about the shop and what's going on. And to have somebody who listens is huge for her, because that's not happened. She's always had to bow to the pressures of his job. And the shoe's never been on the other foot. So I think she goes in that little phrase, why not? She knows why not. She knows why she shouldn't do it. But she says, why not? Like it's free, easy. Yeah, I can do this. But she doesn't say, yes, that would be great. She says, why not? Because she knows herself that she shouldn't be doing that. She should be going home and getting his chips on the way home. Because there's a Frisson, she should step away from it, and she doesn't.
Kacey Ainsworth, thank you so very much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Next time, as Alfie plans to visit Mira in Romford, Mrs. C makes sure he's absolutely prepared for this long, arduous journey.
Wallet?
Yes.
Coat?
Not in this weather.
Flask and sandwiches?
It's 90 minutes away. It's not Scotland.
Those for your mum?
I didn't want to turn up empty-handed.
Join us next week as we talk with actor Tessa Peake-Jones about how the tireless Mrs. C manages to keep the vicarage and her vicars in tip-top shape. Masterpiece Studio is hosted by me, Jay Slay-Cobb, produced by Jack Pombriant, and edited by Robin Bissett. Elishaba Etup is our sound designer. The executive producer for Masterpiece is Suzanne Simpson.